My dad put up a small cross in the yard after my uncle's death. Simple. Wooden. The next morning, it was gone. In its place? A plastic flamingo. And a note. Your mourning ruins the view. We laughed, until we found the cross in pieces in the trash with a name tag attached. Try again. My dad stayed silent. He carved a new one. Planted it again. That night, I sat up watching, and at 3:47 a.m. I saw her. Holding a hammer. When I stopped her, she said, "If he can't let go, I'll help him." My name's Curtis. I'm 28, and I live with my parents again because life didn't work out the way I thought it would. My dad's a quiet man. Worked HVAC for most of his life. My mom runs a little thrift shop near the square. We live in Fairgrove, Missouri. Not a bad town. Not great either. The kind of place where nothing really happens, until it does. My Uncle Paul died last November. Pancreatic cancer. He lived with us the last 6 months. Wouldn't go into hospice, didn't want a hospital bed. Said if he was going out, it'd be on his own terms, in his brother's house. So we watched him fade. Slowly. Painfully. My dad never left his side. He'd sit in that back room, reading the same book over and over, just so Paul wouldn't be alone. After the funeral, Dad didn't speak much. No crying. No stories. Just quiet. A few days later, I found him in the garage, working on something. It was a wooden cross, nothing fancy. Just a piece of pine he sanded down and carved Paul into. Then he took it out to the yard and planted it under the old oak tree, right where Paul used to sit and smoke when he still had the strength to walk. Next morning, I went out to grab the paper. I stopped cold. The cross was gone. In its place was this bright pink plastic flamingo, stuck deep into the dirt like someone had hammered it in. Tied around its neck was a piece of paper. I picked it up and read the note. Just one line, written in all caps. Your mourning ruins the view. I stood there staring at it for a while. Then I called my mom out. She thought it was some teenager's prank. But when Dad came outside and saw it, he didn't say anything. He just walked straight to the trash can, opened the lid, and then I heard him stop. I walked over and looked in. The cross was inside. Snapped into 4 pieces. Someone had broken it on purpose. Deliberately. Next to the splinters was a bent piece of metal, like it had been ripped off a mailbox. I pulled it out. It was an old nameplate. Had one line scratched into it. Try again. I was ready to explode. But Dad? He didn't say a word. He just took the broken wood out of the trash, turned, and walked back to the garage. He worked on the second cross for 2 days. This time, it was thicker. Made from oak. Heavy. He carved deeper. Sharper. Then he drove it into the dirt with a sledgehammer. He didn't ask me for help. Didn't even look at me. That night I couldn't sleep. I don't know what it was. Something about the way he hammered it in. Like it wasn't just grief anymore. Like it was war. I stayed up. Pulled a chair by the front window and left the lights off. Around midnight, I made some coffee and just sat there, watching. One car passed around 1 a.m. Then nothing for hours. Then, at exactly 3:47 a.m., I saw her. She came out from the house across the street. White bathrobe, hair tied back, slippers, carrying a hammer like it was just another tool. She walked right up to the cross. Didn't even hesitate. I was out the front door before she could swing. Hey! I yelled. She froze. Turned to look at me like I was the one trespassing. Didn't drop the hammer. Just stared. If he can't let go, she said, I'll help him. Her voice was calm. Like she was doing us a favor. I was stunned. You broke the first one? I asked. She shrugged. It was a small, quiet street before you made it a memorial site. We all have to live here, you know. I walked closer. That was my uncle. He lived here. He died here. And now he's gone, she said, tilting her head. But your father's grief is loud. Obnoxious. There's a cemetery 5 miles away. Go plant your grief there. I wanted to hit her. I really did. But I didn't. I just stood there, fists clenched. She turned calm as ever and walked back to her house. Next morning, I told my mom everything. She cried. My dad said nothing. Just sat at the table, staring out the window. Later that day, he drove to the hardware store. Came back with fence posts, a small spotlight, and a third cross. Bigger. Darker wood. Almost black. He didn't say a word. Just went back to the yard and started digging. The third cross went in the ground that same afternoon. My dad didn't just plant it this time, he built around it. He put in 2 metal fence posts on either side, poured concrete at their bases, and wired the cross between them with steel loops. Then he mounted a solar spotlight right at the foot of it, so when the sun went down, Uncle Paul's name glowed like a beacon. Our house faces east. Hers faces west. That night, the light from the cross hit her front windows like a laser. I sat on the porch and waited. Didn't even try to hide. She never came out. But the next morning, we found our mailbox smashed in with a cinder block. The lid torn off, posts cracked. No note this time. Just the silence of small-town pettiness boiling into something uglier. I knew it was her. So did Dad. But he didn't call the cops. He didn't even flinch. He just fixed the mailbox that afternoon like it was another chore on his list. Then, later, he added something new to the cross, a small frame with Paul's obituary, laminated and nailed to the wood. That pushed her over the edge. 2 nights later, I caught her again. This time she had bolt cutters. She was trying to snap the wire loops and drag the cross out by force. I was in the garage when I heard the metal clink. I ran out and caught her mid-swing. "You're done," I told her. She didn't stop. Didn't even look at me. "Your father needs to move on," she muttered. "You're enabling this sickness." "That's not your call," I said. "I've lived here for 20 years," she said, eyes wild now. "I know how to keep this street peaceful. This grief is like rot. It spreads." I should have called the cops. But instead I snapped. I grabbed her wrist, yanked the bolt cutters away, and threw them across the yard. She screamed like I'd struck her, even though I hadn't laid a hand on her. Lights flipped on down the street. Curtains moved. People were watching. The next morning, we had a notice taped to our door from the city zoning board. Anonymous complaint. Unapproved memorial structure obstructing visibility. Some nonsense clause she clearly dug up. My dad just smiled. He walked out back and started building again. This time, it wasn't just a cross. He built a bench. 2 chairs. Poured gravel. Turned the base of the oak tree into a damn prayer site. And then he added a small wooden sign facing the road. It read, "For Paul. My brother. My friend. I will not forget." Then he mowed the lawn with his headphones and like it was just another Saturday. Later that day, we got a visit from the city inspector. Said we had to remove everything. Said it was out of character with the neighborhood. I asked who filed the complaint. He didn't say. We had 7 days. That night she stood across the street in her driveway and smiled. Folded arms. Watching us. No shame. Like she'd won. But she hadn't won anything. Not yet. We didn't take anything down. 7 days passed. On the 8th, a city truck pulled up. A guy from Public Works stepped out with a clipboard, a hard hat, and 2 more workers behind him. Said they were ordered to remove the non-compliant structure. My dad didn't argue. Didn't even come outside. But I did. I stood in front of the cross. "You're not touching it," one of them sighed. He didn't look happy to be there. "Look, I'm just doing what the paperwork says. If you want to fight it, take it to the zoning board." "You mean the same board that doesn't meet for another 3 weeks?" I asked. "By then, it'll be in a landfill." He didn't answer. Just looked at the other guys and nodded. They moved forward. But right as they stepped onto our grass, I heard the screen door creak. My dad walked out, calm as ever, holding a folder. He handed it to the guy in charge. Inside was a copy of the deed, a photo of Uncle Paul on our front porch, and a notarized letter from a local veterans group. Turns out, Paul had served 2 tours. Afghanistan? Never talked about it. Came home, got quiet. Built cabinets. Helped around town. Never once mentioned medals, but apparently he had some. That letter said the memorial wasn't just a personal tribute, it was an honorary veteran marker, and under Missouri law, it fell under different protections. The public works guy flipped through the papers, scratched his head, and said, "Well, guess we'll come back another time." They never came back. The next day, I caught her taking pictures from her driveway. She had a folder too. She was building a case. I could see it on her face. This wasn't just a neighbor dispute anymore. She wanted to win. But we weren't playing that game anymore. Not on her terms. A week later, my dad filed a permit to convert the space into a formal memorial garden. Submitted a layout, plant list, even proposed a small plaque with Paul's name and rank. He did it by the book. Paid every fee. I saw her the day the proposal went public. She came storming down the street like a bat out of hell. Banged on our door, hard enough to rattle the glass. My mom answered. "He's weaponizing his grief," the woman shouted. "He's turning this street into a graveyard." My mom didn't say a word. Just stared at her. I have grandkids, she yelled. They don't need to see a shrine every time they visit. It's depressing. Still silence. He's doing it on purpose, she cried. This is harassment. And finally my mom spoke. You destroyed a dead man's memorial. Twice. You mocked it. Now you're upset people can see it? That shut her up. But she wasn't done. Not even close. 2 nights later, someone cut our power. Whole block stayed lit, just our house went dark. I went outside to check the breaker, and that's when I found the cord running from our side panel, snipped clean. Not chewed. Not frayed. Cut. Knife sharp. I turned around, and I saw movement at her window. Curtains fluttering. A shape behind them. Watching. I called the cops. They came out, wrote a report, but said they couldn't prove anything. No witnesses. No cameras? One of them said. You might want to consider putting some up. So we did. Dad installed 3 floodlights and a full camera system the next day. Motion sensors. Cloud backup. The whole setup. Then he did something that shocked even me. He took the footage from the first night, the one where I stopped her with the hammer, and sent it to the local paper. Along with the whole story. Pictures. Emails. The works. 3 days later they ran it on the front page. Local Veterans Memorial vandalized a neighborhood feud. They didn't name her. But everyone knew. This town's not that big. And then, something else happened. Someone put another cross in our yard. Then another. And another. By the end of the week, there were 14 of them. 14 crosses. All the same size. All with names of local vets who had died. Some from war. Some from illness. A few from suicide. And every single one was planted with care. Our yard had become something else. Not a battleground anymore. A message. By the second week, the yard didn't look like a memorial anymore. It looked like a cemetery. 17 crosses. 2 flags. A wind chime someone left hanging from the oak tree. People were stopping by now. Leaving flowers. Small stones. Notes. We didn't ask for any of it. And that made her furious. She wasn't hiding anymore. She stood in her yard every morning, hands on her hips, just staring at us. Sometimes she shouted things. Freak show. Cult. You people are sick. Other times, she just stood there shaking her head. We tried to ignore it. Then, one morning, I woke up to the smell of smoke. It wasn't coming from inside the house, it was the yard. Someone had poured lighter fluid on 3 of the crosses and set them on fire. The grass was scorched, blackened in patches. Smoke curled up into the sky. Neighbors had already started gathering by the time I ran out. One guy had a garden hose, trying to put it out. My dad stood there barefoot in the dew, arms crossed, watching the last cross fall into the blackened dirt. He didn't cry. But his eyes looked hollow. We filed a report. Fire department came. Police came. This time, they weren't casual. The fire had nearly jumped to the oak tree. It could have taken the whole house if it had caught faster. An investigator came out. Took pictures. Asked questions. Then they asked if we had security footage. We did. We pulled it up. 2:11 a.m. A hooded figure creeping through the side yard. Pouring something from a red can. Striking a match. Running. But the footage didn't show a face. They wore gloves. Covered everything. Whoever it was, they knew what they were doing. But then I remembered something. The camera near the back fence caught movement 10 minutes before the fire. A car. A white Lexus pulling out of a driveway 2 doors down. It idled for a few seconds. Then drove off slow. Almost like someone was watching. Waiting. Guess who owns a white Lexus? We turned the footage in. Cops said it wasn't enough to charge her. Suspicious, but not proof. We could tell they didn't want to push too hard. She'd lived there for 20 years. Knew everyone. Sat on the PTA back in the day. Donated to the library fund. The kind of woman who baked pies and told you who wasn't mowing their lawn enough. But word was spreading. 2 days later, a group of veterans came to our door. Some in their old jackets. They didn't say much. Just stood in the yard for a while. One guy saluted the scorched earth. Then they left a wreath and walked off. She saw it all. And the next day, she snapped. It was a Sunday morning. Bright and calm. She walked across the street, dragging a rake behind her like a weapon. We were inside eating breakfast. She started screaming. Loud. Angry. Words slurred together. Take them down! Take them all down! This is my street too! She started swinging the rake at the flowers. tearing through the gravel. Kicked one of the small stones someone had placed under Paul's name. That's when Dad walked outside. He didn't yell. Didn't even raise his voice. He just said one thing. Go back to your house. She pointed the rake at him. This is your fault. You brought death to my front door. My dad didn't flinch. He lived here. He died here. That cross stays. You can either get used to it or find another place to look. I'm going to court. She hissed. I'll bear you in paperwork. He nodded. Then we'll see you there. She stormed back to her house. But before she reached her porch, she turned around and screamed something I'll never forget. You grieve louder than he ever lived! Then she slammed her door. After that Sunday, something shifted. She didn't come outside for a while. No screaming. No rants. No looks from her driveway. It was like she disappeared. But it wasn't over. We got a letter from a lawyer. She was suing us. Claiming emotional distress, property devaluation, psychological trauma caused by repeated visual exposure to symbols of death. I read it out loud at the kitchen table. My mom cried. My dad sat stone still. Then he stood up, walked to the garage, and didn't come out for 4 hours. The next morning, he filed a response, pro se. He wasn't paying for a lawyer. Said he'd fight it himself. But here's where I made my mistake. I was tired. Angry. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. So I posted the camera footage online. The clips of her yelling, vandalizing, trying to cut the cross down. I added a caption. This is what our family is dealing with. This is what hate looks like. It blew up. Not viral, but enough. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments. People calling for her arrest. Sending threats. Posting her address. Her phone number. I didn't mean for that part to happen. But it did. And I didn't stop it. By the end of the week, someone spray painted her garage. Grief hater, another one just said. Hell's neighbor. We didn't do it. But it didn't matter. She filed a second complaint, against me. Claimed I incited harassment. That I doxed her. That I weaponized grief. And here's the thing, she wasn't wrong. I did post her face. Her house. I let people pile on. I wanted her to feel what we felt. And she did. Too much. 3 weeks before the court date, her house went dark. Curtains closed. Mail piling up. One day, an ambulance showed up. No siren. Just 2 EMTs walking out quiet, pushing a stretcher. Covered. She died in her sleep. Stroke. Alone. I stood on the porch and watched them load her into the van. I didn't feel anything. Not right away. But later that night, when I looked across the street and saw the empty windows, I felt sick. She was wrong. But I let it go too far. I turned our pain into a war. And in the end, she lost more than just the fight. She lost everything. And my dad? He didn't say a word. Not one word about her death. But the next morning, he went to the yard and pulled out every cross but one. Paul's. He left that one. He trimmed the grass. Took down the lights. Raked the gravel flat. The sign came down too. I asked him why. He said, I remembered what Paul told me once. That no fight is ever clean. You win and you're still dirty. That hit me hard. Now it's just one cross. No flowers. No flags. Just Paul's name, carved deep. Still standing. Sometimes I see people slow their cars down and look. Some still leave a stone. But mostly, it's quiet again. I still live here. So do my parents. Her house sold a few months later. New family moved in. They don't know the history. I hope they never ask. Because if they do, I'm not sure how I'd explain it. I got revenge. But it didn't feel like winning. It just felt done.